You never cause problems. You go along. You say yes when you mean maybe. You smile when you feel nothing. And somehow, that has become the most exhausting thing about your life. People call you easygoing, low maintenance, a breath of fresh air. And for a long time, you believed them. You thought being easy was a gift you gave to others. But somewhere underneath that, there's a cost no one talks about. A slow, quiet drain. You notice it in the moments after you agree to something you didn't want, in the way your jaw tightens, in the tiredness that doesn't go away after sleep. This isn't laziness. This isn't weakness. This is what psychologists call self-silencing, a pattern where you suppress your internal experience to maintain harmony in your external world. Dr. Dana Jack, who spent decades studying depression in women, found that self-silencing is not just a habit, it's a deeply wired survival strategy. The brain learns, often early in life, that expressing your true needs creates conflict. And conflict, to a developing nervous system, feels like danger. So it adapts. It finds a workaround. Become easy. Become agreeable. Become the person who never asks too much. And the world rewards you for it, for a while. Here is what I want you to understand. You are not too sensitive. You are not too needy. You are not broken. You are running a very old program, one that was written before you had the language to question it. The psychologist Carl Rogers spent his life studying what he called the conditions of worth, the invisible rules we absorb as children about what makes us lovable. If approval came when you were quiet, your brain mapped silence to safety. If conflict led to coldness or punishment, your brain learned to avoid friction at all costs. This is not a character flaw. This is neuroplasticity doing exactly what it was designed to do, adapting, protecting, surviving. The problem is not who you are. The problem is that the survival strategy has outlived the danger it was built for. Think of it this way. Imagine your nervous system as a house. When you were young, someone left the alarm system on. Every time a conflict arose, every time you expressed a need and something went wrong, the alarm triggered. Cortisol, tension, shutdown. So you learned to never trigger the alarm. You became a person who tiptoes through their own house, careful, quiet, always adjusting. Neuroscience calls this hypervigilance, a state where your brain is perpetually scanning for social threat. The anterior cingulate cortex, the part of your brain that processes social pain, treats rejection and exclusion the same way it treats physical pain. Being difficult doesn't just feel uncomfortable. To your nervous system, it registers as dangerous. So your brain offers you a deal. Stay agreeable, and I'll keep you safe. And you take the deal, every time, because it works in the moment. But fawning, which is what psychologists call this pattern, is a stress response, not a personality trait. It sits alongside fight, flight, and freeze. It was your way of surviving a room where being yourself felt too risky. So, what do you do when the alarm has been on so long you forgot it wasn't normal? You don't smash the system, you recalibrate it. Here are 5 principles, each grounded in how the brain actually changes. 1. Name the drain before you fix it. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio showed that emotions that are not named continue to drive behavior from below the surface. When you feel that familiar heaviness after saying yes, pause, name it. I just silenced myself again. Not as judgment, as information. The act of labeling an emotional state reduces its intensity in the amygdala. Language creates distance. Distance creates choice. 2. Practice the pause before the yes. When someone makes a request, your nervous system answers before your mind does. The fawn response is fast, so you build in a delay. You say, "Let me think about that," not as a stall, but as a practice in letting your actual preference surface before your automatic response does. Over time, this creates a new pathway. Not silence instead of expression, but a space where expression becomes possible. 3. Start with low-stakes honesty. You don't begin by telling your boss no. You begin somewhere smaller. You order what you actually want at a restaurant. You say you're not in the mood for a show when someone asks what to watch. Tiny acts of self-expression send a signal to your nervous system. This is safe. Nothing broke, no one left. Behavioral psychologists call this systematic desensitization, the slow, intentional exposure to a feared behavior in manageable increments until the fear response reduces. You are not changing your personality. You are updating your threat model. 4. Grieve the image, not the self. There will be a moment when you express a real need and someone is briefly disappointed. This will feel enormous, because part of you has spent years protecting others from your needs. That protective self deserves acknowledgement. It did its job. It kept the peace. It kept you safe. But it is not the whole of you. Psychologist Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion shows that people who can acknowledge their pain without dramatizing or suppressing it recover faster from conflict and form deeper relationships over time. The goal is not to stop caring about others. It is to care about yourself with the same steadiness you've always offered everyone else. 5. Let relationships breathe through truth. Here is what the easy person often fears most. If I show who I really am, people will leave. But research in attachment theory by John Bowlby and later Mary Main reveals the opposite. Secure attachment, the kind that leads to the deepest and most lasting bonds, is built not on harmony, but on repair. Conflict, acknowledged and worked through, creates more trust than permanent agreeableness. When you stop being easy, you don't lose real relationships. You reveal which ones were real to begin with. Here is the model I want you to carry. Think of yourself as a signal. For years, you've been muffling the signal so others could hear themselves more clearly. But a muffled signal is not kindness, it's interference. The people who love you, truly love you, are not receiving you, they're receiving a performance of you. And deep down, you know the difference. Real connection is not built on ease, it's built on contact. The moment where someone sees something real in you, something unpolished, uncertain, actually yours, and they stay. That is what you've been afraid to risk. That is also what you've been longing for. You don't have to become difficult. You don't have to swing to the other extreme and fill every room with your needs. You just have to begin letting yourself be present, truthfully, quietly, consistently, one small moment at a time. The brain that learned to disappear can learn something new, not because you force it, but because you finally give it what it was always looking for. Proof that you are safe enough to be seen.